G'day guys, I'm D-Mac from NBA Fantasy Bible, and along with me is Kayla Fonte. And together we are Between Two Hoops. Kayla, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing really well. And guess what? It's actually our inaugural episode of Between Two Hoops around the world. It's super exciting. We've got several guests out the back just waiting and willing to get amongst it. Just a quick overview of what the concept is. It's practically just fantasy lovers around the world wanting to get involved, getting on their soapbox, getting in front of the camera and just giving us our thoughts or their thoughts around the upcoming fantasy season. It can be analysts, it can be followers, it can be people that just dabble in fantasy. No real qualifications required, but a lot of these guys we know about from way back. A lot of them are really, really engaging and have been a part of the real fabric of fantasy basketball. And we know a lot of these followers just because of their engagement levels, particularly on Twitter. And we'll take you through them. And a lot of you guys watching now will probably recognize some of these names as well. So super exciting to have some of these guys on. But Kayla, just quickly take us through what you've been doing recently.
Yeah, so far working on a lot of articles, a lot of content with you, and a new podcast that I'm launching with one of our guests, which we'll talk about after. But yeah, a lot of fantasy content on the way.
Wonderful segue into getting our guests involved. What we'll do is we'll introduce them one by one, and then we'll get stuck into our draft targets. Another draft target episode, but this time from these guys, it'll be a nice breath of fresh air. So let's get stuck into it, shall we? So first guest, Matt, welcome. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. Now, give us a quick brief. Oh, thank you so much. It's wonderful to have each and every one of you on the show now. But give us a brief description of your involvement in fantasy hoops, where you're located, and how you got to be where you are today.
Well, right now I'm in Chicago. This is where I was born, spent most of my life in the Midwest, Milwaukee, Chicago. And most of the year I live out in Ireland, though. So I got a ton of family out there. You know, we all have houses and farms like right on the same road. So it's a close-knit group out there. I like it.
Oh, I love that. And I know that a lot of people would recognize Matt's name as well because he's constantly in the comments, constantly retweeting, liking all of our content. So massive supporter of both myself, Kayla. I know he retweets pretty much every fantasy content creator. So we love him and it's great to have him on board. So thank you so much, Matt.
Absolutely.
Next, we've got Pat. Welcome, Pat. Also of Next Level Fantasy Basketball as well. So another fantasy analyst, but trying to get more of your content out. So Pat, give us a bit of yourself, a bit of info about yourself.
Yes, first of all, thank you to D-Mac and of course Kayla. Happy to meet Matt and everybody else who's coming on board next. Thanks for the intro. My name is Pat. I'm from Next Level Fantasy. So we organize fantasy leagues here in Manila, together with the other guys that you probably met, like Papi Roy and Fantasy Benchwarmer. So we're a fun group. I started playing fantasy, I think, 2013, and of course, I'm not gonna repeat that mistake that I made during my rookie year. I drafted Kobe in the first round, but to my defense, it took me to places. So I'm not doubling down on that rookie mistake. But just kidding, I'm a big Kobe fan as well, so that's why I put that into the intro. So happy to be here, guys. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks so much, Pat. Now, next is a name or initials that you may recognize as well. VP, welcome.
Hey, everyone. D-Mac and Kayla and everyone. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. And I've been doing fantasy for about 21 years, so it's great. It keeps the stress down. And I try to convince my wife and other family members to join, but it's tough to get women in there. Kayla, it's great to have you. And hopefully we build the women community in fantasy. That's great to see. I like that.
It's definitely something that we're working on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that part that you guys do. And you've been putting out good content for the last couple of years. It's good. You guys are going to build something really special.
Thanks, VP.
Thank you so much, VP. Greatly appreciated. Now, just a little bit about VP as well. I remember VP commenting on Dan Bespress's show, tweets for many, many years. And I haven't been in fantasy for as long as VP, but I definitely remember a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the conversations over Twitter. So very appreciative, sometimes quite opinionated and very strong on certain players. So looking forward to hearing those opinions tonight.
I got to tone it down a little.
Please don't.
It's just
Please don't.
We love it.
Very passionate about basketball, so it gets those juices flowing.
And I know you're going to take me to town on Bradley Bum, as you like to call him, but Bradley Beal, who I selected.
It's unbelievable when some of these guys, when they get their Supermax contract, they just completely change. They're not driven anymore. And Bradley Beal, 2 years in a row, he sat out with the Wizards, and he could have played. As a fan and just a follower of the game, it's just frustrating to see that. They get their money and that's it. They don't want to improve. They don't want to maintain. And it just seems like he's content with where he's at, and it's a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that Pat will be discussing Bradley Beal a little bit later on, so something else we can discuss later.
He finished as a top 12 guy just within the last 4 years.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fall from grace, isn't it? Yeah, you mentioned the women's game and women's fantasy. Wonderful segue into our next guest and co-host of BBB with Kayla. Yuri, welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. Thank you for coming on. Wonderful to have you on. Wonderful to have all of you guys on. But Yuri, give us a bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Yuri Ono. I think in chat communities, I go by Cats in Oakland. I'm based out of Oakland, California, and sometimes Portland, Oregon. I got started in fantasy around 2011. And I got started in Roto first. And then I moved into head-to-head and loved head-to-head. So I mostly play. I don't play points. I just play category leagues. So, yeah.
I love that. Starting out in Roto, I think real strong. When I first started getting into hoops, it was Dan Bespress, and he obviously has that Roto background. So I love that about it, and that you definitely learn the foundation of category league sort of play from Roto. So wonderful. Thank you for the introduction, guys. What we're going to do is take you through our draft targets, and later on in the show, we're going to take you through some ADP battles. But let's make a start, guys. All right, fantasy draft targets. Let's start with Matt, all the way in Chicago via Ireland. Let's take us through some of your players. And let me just preface it by saying that I've called you already. I've coined you our points league aficionado, but a lot of your targets are based on points league value. But what I've done here, and you'll take us through this shortly, is just given some context as to what how they're performing in terms of 9-cap, but also points league from last season and what the current ADPs are. But let's start from the top. Matt, take it away.
Yeah, so with Sabonis, and like you were saying, I started in mostly points leagues, came over from fantasy football. It was kind of the same format. That's how I started into fantasy basketball. And Sabonis has just been one of my favorite players. That's not a Milwaukee Buck. But, in points leagues, you want to get the counting stats, the usage, minutes are big things in points leagues. And, in categories, you're not going to get too much defensively out of him, but he could get you a triple-double any night almost. And, I don't mind taking him around the turn, 12, second round, no problem.
Yeah. Would you think the same in a category league? Because I have seen him go occasionally at around the turn.
Yeah, that's where I would take him earlier than that in a points league, in a category league, And yeah. I like pairing him up with a lot of guys there. I think a lot of guys you could pair up with Sabonis.
Absolutely. Now, he was ranked 8th in points league last season, 28th in category leagues. Does that concern you, or is there a reason around that? Is that just the free throws that are killing him there?
Yeah, he's not going to give you much for free throws and the defensive stats, but, he'll give you tons of rebounds, the assists, a little bit of points, field goal percentage, and, I don't see too much of a decline with DeRozan coming over for his usage, maybe a few assists less, but I think DeRozan might take away more from guys like Monk, Keegan Murray, maybe a little bit from them. And DeRozan himself had real high usage last year. I think he averaged the most minutes of any player in the league. So he's getting up there in age, 35, something like 36. So maybe a little bit of a decline for DeRozan. I'm still comfortable with Sabonis.
And the good thing about Sabonis is that 10th category that doesn't count, but the durability category as well. So, he tends to play a lot of games. I know you can't predict injuries and whatnot, but he tends to play through even the little niggle. So, kudos to you. Next one, Damian Lillard, take us through.
So Lillard, it's kind of a homer pick because I'm a big Bucks fan, but I think he'll have a bounce back year this season. He came over to the Bucks last year. It was like right before the start of the preseason. Didn't really have time to get into his off-season routine. He had talked about how, he wasn't really comfortable being away from his family and made comments that he's more comfortable this year, being away from them. And, I think we might see him take more threes, maybe try and get to the basket a little more, which maybe will help his percentage a little bit. But I like Lillard in the second round, mid-second, late.
Yeah, I agree. I know VP, he will take us through some of his targets as well, but VP is huge on Lillard, as I am as well. So you look at that ranking from last season, 19th in 9-cat. So the ADP is actually higher than that? Is he going to be worse than last season? I'm not so sure. So I think that's wonderful value. So great pick there. Pascal Siakam, is this a points league special or is this something else?
This is like my points league brain, I'm lower on him in categories, but, I think, like 70, 75, something like that in categories is okay. But, in points leagues, I'm taking him much earlier than that. I don't know. Like 42 is what we have up here, but I think I'd even go a small bit higher. But that's about right.
Does he have any room for improvement alongside a Halliburton? So I know he obviously didn't play the full season in Indiana. Can he get better?
I think he could get a little better. Like he got traded mid-season last year. Maybe, full off season with the team. Maybe he'll find his role a little bit better. But no, he's just one guy that I really like in points leagues.
Love it. Now, these two next guys, Golden State Warriors, a lot to do. No Klay Thompson. Take us through Jonathan Kuminga to start with.
Yeah, Kuminga is one of these Warriors guys that are going in late that could, kind of come up and hit big for you because they're all going around 100 or even after that. And Kuminga, he was like second on the team in usage, I think, last year. Maybe he'll be their number 2 option. I think they should start him. I don't see them, Wiggins starting over him. I think he's sure locked in starter. But, if he's the second option on the Warriors, I think he's in for a good year.
Now, VP, you're a fan of the Warriors. Do you agree with that? Is Kuminga starting?
With Coach Kerr, he's always been limiting the younger guys in Kuminga and Moody, and it's a shame. He doesn't try to give them developmental minutes during the regular season. Did it since their first year. Now they're entering their 4th year, and it's just been a battle. I think Kerr just gets so upset with Kuminga and Moody because they make mistakes, but it's tough. I think it's going to be Wiggins who's going to be the one who's the second guy on that team behind Steph. Oh, by the way, I think Steph's going to have a monster year, I think, because it's not going to be like how it was after the 2019-2020 season where he only played a handful of games and they tanked. This year, Steph's going to go crazy, I think, and it's going to be unbelievable. I think a lot of people are putting him really, really down where he's in the middle of the second round. You could even get him, and that's crazy to get Steph that late. And he has a chance to really go nuclear this year. I think he will. This is a personal year for Steph, I think, to bounce back, especially Klay gone, and he has only Dre there. I think it's going to be Steph's show, and then Wiggins is going to be the second guy, I think. I'm not sure if Kuminga is going to be able to clean up the percentages or the consistent defensive stats that he needs for 9-cat. But in points league, for sure. I think Kuminga is going to have a good year for points league, but for 9-cat, it's going to be tough for Kuminga. He's going to have to clean up the free throw percentage, and then the steals and blocks have to come up, and the assist game is not really there. It could be, but I don't know. We're gonna have to find out this year. He has the chance, but Kerr is the key. I don't know if Kerr is gonna allow Kuminga to, go wild like that. He's still a little bit raw, and it's getting better. But I had him last year. I picked him up off the free agency, and for free, it was worth it. But to draft a high pick, I think you might want to hold off till it's time to take some shots at 7th and 8th rounds, or maybe even when Bradley Beal's taken at 62. No, no,
So
I wouldn't
I'm
go that
thinking
far.
that ADP, yeah, I'm thinking that ADP is pretty good. So that's around the point, that 98 ADP is around the point where you want to start going for that upside as well. And we saw a stretch last season, to your point, Matt, where he was really impressive as well. So perhaps there's an opportunity if Coach Kerr, as VP was saying, Coach Kerr could come around and play him some more minutes. So let's see how that plays out. Take us through Trace Jackson-Davis as well, similar situation.
Oh, right. So, VP might know a little bit more being the Warriors guy, but I think he should start next to Draymond. They've talked about Draymond's going to start. They haven't said whether it's going to be the 4 or the 5, but I think he fits in there, nice at center. And there's really no one, who's Looney's behind him. I don't really have much faith in Looney. And then, yeah, he's going to get you blocks, good percentages, a little bit of points. And, I think he could crack the top 100 if he gets over 25 minutes a game.
I can see that as well. And getting him in the 11th or 12th round, I think that's value. And that's, like you said, that's the point where you want to start taking these flyers. And at the end of the day, it's not often that the guys that you pick in the 11th and 12th round in a draft, you tend to retain. You tend to start cycling through these guys with streaming. So there's no real risk at that point. So I think it's a really nice pick there. Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate your take on those players there. Next, Patrick. Pat, take us through some of your picks. You've got quite a few here.
Yes, thank you, DMAC. As I was saying earlier, this is a fun slide for me because I'm in a draft right now while we're talking. So looking at this,
multitasking.
I didn't really meant to target them, but for example, I'm not so sure if I'm gonna regret this, but I did pass on Luka at number 3 to go with SGA only because I want to focus on building my free throws. So other than that, it could go either way. I could have gone Luka, but we had this chat with VP as well. So I mentioned last year I quite had a success with the SGA Bama Adebayo combo. So I just try to roll with it this season again. So SGA is going to be crucial to my build. And then next on the list is KD. I'm surprised that he slipped a lot. And I've been into some discussion because I'm trying to calibrate my biases for that matter because I'm a KD fan. So I'm trying to talk myself out into this. But to my point, I'm not a bit bothered because from what I've heard from other people, the reason why they're a bit down on KD, 2 reasons come up. Number one is they've heard it on Josh Lloyd's podcast. So I think Josh has a big influence on people drafting here in Manila, Philippines. And then second, I think they fear that Coach Bud is going to limit his minutes. From if my estimates are correct, he's sitting above 33 minutes prior the Bud era, but 33 minutes is fine with me. I think KD can easily hit the first round, per game as per usual. So I don't mind getting him there. James Harden also because of the injury updates to Kawhi, and of course with PG out, I'm really big on James Harden. And then Adebayo because of his out of position assists with the combinations that I'm trying to put up with. So a little bit of pairings here, if you may. So I got points covered in there with SGA, and then try to look for Durant if he slides or Harden for that matter. And then the out of position assists from KD, and Bama de Bayo is really nice. Now let's go to the exciting part. Maybe VP can chime chime in later for Bradley Bum or Bradley Beal. So, but VP swayed me. I resisted grabbing Beal at this spot during my draft tonight. However, I did go after Jordan Poole as a reach. So I think I grabbed Poole around earlier than what's being shown on the screen right now, only because it's a 20 deep draft that I'm doing tonight, and my first two picks were I'm number 3, so I went with SGA and Kyrie Irving as my second pick. Um, I think I regret a bit going Miles Turner on the third round, but I went after blocks. So during the
And
fourth
Pat, just
round, I
in
had to go
the last few days, it's
Jordan
been
Poole.
confirmed that Jordan
Mhm.
Poole's starting at point guard, which I think is massive. And I've seen
Mhm.
a slight shift in how people are now drafting Poole. I think they're willing to go that high, a little bit higher on him. So I could see that ADP coming a lot tighter as well and going up, because I'm now seeing him being taken in the 80s, sometimes even earlier in mock drafts as well. So I do like
That's
that pick of.
comforting. That's comforting to hear.
I know there's
Uh,
PTSD from last season where he's a massive disappointment.
mhm.
You look at that 9-cat ranking of 132,
Yeah,
and he was being touted as someone who could have been a top 50 guy with the extra responsibilities and usage and all that stuff coming over from the Warriors, and it was just such a disappointing season last year. Most of us fell for it, so maybe there's still an opportunity to get some value at Jordan Poole.
I really hope that's the case because, of course, we're discussing points a little bit earlier with Matt, and then of course redraft for most of the night. But I scooped a lot of Jordan Poole shares during the off season in Dynasty, so I was trying to maximize the buy low opportunity there. So I think I was successfully able to buy out of my 4 dynasties. I think I got 4 Jordan Poole shares during the off season. So
So
that's
that's a
starting
win.
to really feel good as well.
Yeah, that's a win.
Um,
Absolutely.
and then of
Because he's still
course,
very young. 20, what is he, 25 years old? Something like that.
yes, and then hopefully he's matured enough to, together with Kyle, lead this very young Wizards team. So
Yeah.
hope he gets things together. And
And your
then
last
last
one,
is
Subach.
Subats. Yeah. Um, I don't know. I don't want to call it a boring pick, but this mostly stems as well from me having a lot of Subat shares from Dynasty. So I think he's been a very stable double double guy for me. And if you can see the transition, I'm more of a pairings guy. The positional composition of the team really matters to me, and I believe along with that gets me to focus on specific stats that I'm targeting. If you see the big men on this list, that's the main reason why I try to get my first and second round picks as good free throw percentage. So I try to really keep my free throws as pristine as possible because I think it's not much people focus on that. So with my build, I think it's crucial with my own personal strategy.
Absolutely, yeah. He doesn't hurt you anywhere. Nice, efficient big man. He's going to have more opportunity this season. And what surprised me going into hashtag basketball, looking at his rank from last season where he had I felt a disappointing season. I know he was out injured a fair bit. He was still 88th in 9-cat per hashtag basketball. So for his ADP to actually be above that, we're thinking that he's going to be worse than last season. I don't think so. His backup, who's his backup? Mobamba. So he's fine. I think Zubac is a wonderful pick there. All right. Thank you, Pat. Really, really appreciate it. Any comments from you guys? Yuri of VP, Matt?
I just want to get a share what everyone's thoughts is on KD. I don't want to pick on Bum anymore, but I wanted to talk about KD with you guys. What's your feedback? Because last year he ended kind of down, I thought, with the way normal KD is, like where he finishes in the top 12, usually year in and year out. But the last few months when he got back from, I think, another injury, it's always like that with KD during the regular season. He takes it very lightly. That's the other reason why I'm not that big on KD, because he doesn't really care about the regular season. He takes a lot of games off, and it's just for head to head, it's a killer, man, to not have availability like that.
Yeah. And to touch on one thing, like the Suns' new head coach is Mike Budenholzer. He's an old Bucks old head coach, and Budenholzer is kind of like the opposite of Thibs. He usually doesn't play his starters a ton of minutes, so maybe his minutes might drop down a little bit with his age and all that. But then on the other hand, they're saying they want him to take more threes. So I'm still in on Durant, but I could see maybe his minutes going down a little bit.
I'm taking him. I mean, if he's there in the third, I might just take him.
He's going third round?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. In my head-to-head, he went third.
Oh, wow.
KD's a hooper, man. He loves playing basketball. And if he's not playing basketball, he's an unhappy guy. So I'm just, he's going to be out there. And, he's one of the greatest players of all time. So he just contributes across the board, and he's going to be out there. So I'm a believer in KD. No one loves to hoop more than him, in my opinion.
And he played 75 games last season. And VP absolutely felt him tail off at the back end of the last season, because I actually traded for him and he almost cost me a championship. But very disappointing. It was like he was doing a little bit too much when Bradley Beal returned to the team, and he was trying to force it. And there were a lot of unnecessary turnovers. It was unlike KD. And I know a lot of times we ignore turnovers, but it does hurt that 9-cat overall ranking. So I can see the hesitation.
I think Beal being out last the starters just had very little time to gel on that team. And I think everyone was trying to overcompensate for people that were out, KD included, that they just never got in a groove, as a starting unit. So I think that kind of put him off a little bit. But, at the start of the season, he's going to be ready to go, and everyone's healthy. So I think they're going to be out guns blazing, with Budenholzer.
Yeah. And I'm with you there. The lack of synergy really hurt them going into the real life playoffs as well. And it just seems too forced. So I can see them just improving as a team this season. And I'm hoping that KD perhaps plays 75 games. Very unlikely that he repeats that. But I'm okay taking him in the middle of the second. I actually took him at the start of the second. And in hindsight, probably a little bit too early, because I actually paired him up with Steph in that draft. It was an industry draft. So I've gone for... trying to reminisce of the old days, going to Steph KD build, but highly risk, but perhaps high reward as well. So hopefully he's able to replicate somewhat at the start of last season this year. But thank you for that, Pat. We'll get to the next one. BP, you've got a couple here, and I know you've left a few and it left us in surprise or in suspense, but take us through Dame first.
I think even though Dame had a down year, I mean, there was a lot going on personally. I kind of got to see that on social media, where he was going through a separation with his significant other. And that takes a mental toll on you. And then also the shift to Milwaukee under a new team and new coach, new system. And we just didn't see the same Dame that we normally see year in and year out. And we'll get to see that this year. I'm pretty positive of that, and I'm high on Dame. I would even take him at the turn of the first into the second. It doesn't really matter, 12, 13 pick. I would go that high, because you're not going to get him back. So that's the struggles of having the picks at 11, 12. It's brutal at that end. If you have third round reversal, that's great. We should be implementing that as one of the standards now, especially with Wemby and Jokic just lapping the field. A third round reversal should be a mandatory league setting option, Yahoo. So, but that's my take on that. But Dame, I think, is going to definitely bounce back. You're going to get solid.
Your take on the third round reversal. We're seeing that in the majority of Fantrax leagues that I'm in now, and Yahoo. I know, Pat, you're a massive Yahoo guy, as is the norm in the Philippines, but I don't think they have that ability to have third round reversal at this stage.
You have to manually type it into your settings where you could reverse it. We did it in our league last year, so it's definitely something you have to do, especially when you get to 14, 16 teams and deeper. Even in 12s now, it's good to have that flexibility for the people at the back end of the draft.
Absolutely. J-Dub.
Oh, this guy, he he's gonna just go crazy. I think this year. I have a feeling that he's gonna be even maybe top 20 finish at the end of the year. He's a special player, and with Giddy gone, there's gonna be more for him to do. I think he's looking at a phenomenal breakout year. I mean, this is the guy that I want in every league, and I usually don't do that, but some guys that you just have to run with. Like last year, everyone knew it was going to be Maxey. With Harden 1 foot out the door, the comments he made about Daryl Morey was hilarious. And you knew the runway was clear for Maxey, especially with the Embiid injury coming too. It's 2 weeks or 3 weeks of missing games with Embiid. Maxey had the runway. And this year, I think it's Jalen Williams. It's clear for him. 3rd year coming in. Usually, these are the years that guys really break out. And I know last year we didn't get that breakout from Jalen Williams in his 2nd year, but this year I think he's gonna do it. He's one of my must grabs. And then the other Jalen Johnson, I was able to get him last year in one league, luckily. And this year the runway is clear for Jalen Johnson as well. I mean, DeJounte Murray's out the door, and after Trae Young, who's there? I mean, it's all Jalen Johnson, I think. And I even think it could be 1A and 1B with him and Trae together, where Jalen Johnson might not even take a back seat. He's going to run the offense too. He's that talented, and he could fill up the stats on every single category. He's amazing. I mean,
we spoke about that on one of our earlier episodes, Kayla, where he just popped off in a random game for a triple-double. This guy is still a young guy, I think 3rd year. Last season, just triple-double out of nowhere, and it just saw that potential of being a playmaker, not just an exciting, high-flying scorer and rebounder. But yeah, he's got that potential. Now, DeJounte, as you said, is no longer there, so absolutely has huge potential there.
Yeah, Nick McMillan. I don't know what he was doing on that Atlanta Hawks bench and not letting him get minutes his 1st and 2nd year. I mean, last year he started coming off the bench, and Quinn Snyder quickly had to bring him in and start him right away. Yeah. I think it only took a week, and everybody on social media was just clamoring for it, and it happened. It was shocking. Yeah. It was great to see that. Now,
any other late round guys?
Oh, so the late round guys. I usually go every round who I want as on my team. I circle guys. I like to take players based on ADP or like by rounds. And if I have to reach, I'll reach for Jalen Williams and Jalen Johnson. But after that, I like to go based on rounds. I like to pick players that I want. But those are the two I think this year that have a chance of going really, really high. I think, again, Jalen Williams, top 20. I'm going to get him in all my leagues. And Jalen Johnson as well. I think his ADP is in the 4th round, I think. I think he has a chance of finishing top 36 easily.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Higher.
And very much with you there in VP. I know exactly how you maneuvered out of that one. You're trying not to give away your late round guys, so well done on that one.
Oh, no. I'm going to do it now. You're
going to?
Yeah.
Hopefully not all of your league mates are watching.
Yeah, so Pods, I had him last year on my as a pickup on the fantasy league, many leagues. I snatched him up right away. The guy fills up stats, and now with Clay gone, and they didn't want to trade him. I don't know if this was. I don't know if you guys all were reading up on it. They were very hesitant on giving him up on any packages. I mean, the Pods has the runway. I think in terms of minutes. He might not start. But he's Steph's guy, and he's also Kerr's guy. He's also Dunleavy's guy. He's the organization loves him, and they're gonna find ways to get him minutes. And when he gets out there, he just produces. The only thing you got to worry about is it's a crowded mess with Milton, Buddy Hield, Pods. But I think he might break through and get minutes, and if he does, you're gonna get a lot of counting stats. And they're wanting him to shoot 7 to 8 threes a game. Yeah. I think he's a no-brainer late round. I don't know if he's going to be able to last, though. That's the problem. And the real late round guys, of course, is Noah Clowney. And I think this guy, Andrew Nembhard. not one of the most boring players there, but the Pacers love him. I mean, they start him next to Halliburton, and then, God forbid, if Halliburton goes down, he puts up some numbers there. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw last year's playoff series against the Knicks. He really just got off shots at any point he wanted, and he was really, really, really talented. I think he has a chance. I believe he's entering his third year now. I think Nembhard has a chance to really, do some things here. And as a late round flyer, late round guy, I don't think he's going to get picked.
I think he got a contract extension as well in the offseason.
He did, yeah. The Pacers love him.
Yeah, they love him. They love him.
Yeah.
We know that he did have opportunity to sort of flourish when Halliburton went down with a hamstring. Didn't really show that in the regular season. But like you said, in the playoffs, he went ballistic.
It was unbelievable. It was a different person out there. And I know his rookie year, he really killed the Warriors. He went bonkers on them, 30-plus points. There was no answer. He was feeling it that game. But I think he has a chance to break out. And then also Clowney. I think the Nets, they're primed. They're going to tank their asses off. Forgive me for that. But they're going to tank their asses off this year. They have no one here on that team that could I think Cam Johnson's going to be out the door. You're going to have Jalen Wilson, this guy on the Nets who may produce. Cam Thomas is going to do well, putting up shots. I think Cam Thomas, he's going to get overdrafted, I think, though. There's going to be a lot of people trying to get him. If you could have Cam Thomas slide in your drafts, that's easy, a 20-point score plus. And then he might get you some assists because he's going to run the offense there as well. I think Cam Thomas is looking at a big year in the Nets.
I agree. And if you're punting those field goal percentages, I think a really good pick. And for points leagues, I think he's going to be fantastic. But he's still not my sort of style. I think Kayla
he's not my sort of style either. But I mean, the opportunity is massive in Brooklyn.
It's huge.
There is no one there after, with Mikal Bridges gone. It's just, and I think Cam Johnson's going to be out the door next for draft picks.
Yeah, and we're sort of seeing that being reflected with Nick Claxton as well. He's sort of sliding just because people are so wary of a tanking team, and it's a good season, I think, with Cooper Flagg and Ace Bailey and all these guys. It's going to be a massive draft. But yeah, fantastic. Thank you, VP. Wonderful. Thank you for your hot takes as well. Top 20, Jalen Williams. I can get behind that. Absolutely. All right. Yuri, now you haven't provided us with any names because you're going to leave us in suspense until now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to give away too much of my strategy and stuff, but I thank you for putting Team USA on there. Go Team USA. I started out in Roto, so I just started out with the strategy and just learning how to play fantasy basketball by going for balance. And then when I moved into head-to-head, I got like, wow, this is a whole new world opening up to me. I can like target and apply a little bit more strategy in the draft and throughout the season. And so then I kind of went heavy into head-to-head. And last season, I think, was kind of the epitome of me punting. And I got totally burned by it. So this year, I'm really going to try and go back to my Roto ways and strive for balance and really go into each draft like looking for balance, not punting or soft punting as late as possible during the draft. And, I'm in a couple of slow drafts right now, and I think it's working for me. I think I've got a core that's super efficient, and different guys can plug into different kind of categories. I saw this article on Basketball Monster about drafting for balance and guards that are great in guard stats, and then balancing out with bigs who are great big stats, And I'm using that a little bit, and I think it's working out. So that said, guys that I like, if they're available, are like Harden. When I was drafting 11 in my head-to-head league, and I liked him at the turn. I think I'm really excited for Karl Anthony Towns in New York. Like maybe he'll go back to his early Minnesota days, where he can block some shots, do a little bit more rebounding, still, of course, he's always going to shoot those threes. And with Tibbs, he played under Tibbs before, so he's familiar with that kind of system. I like Austin Reeves. I think he's a really solid piece of the Lakers team. I think the fan base love him. I think he really plugs in how he needs to. Doing a lot, like last night's game, doing a lot of ball handling, dishing out a lot of dimes. I love that. Just an efficient player as well. I'm kind of high on Jordan Poole, even though I drafted him last year and got burned. I just think, I'm a longtime Warriors fan since the Run TMC days, so I really love that team. And admittedly, I watch them the most. And Jordan, I feel like he's got so much potential, and he's a great shooter, and he's got this great kind of energy on the court. And last year, I think it was just kind of a shock for him to go to a new team and a new system and kind of be the guy. But now that that's over with, I'm kind of hoping that he'll just ball out. And now that, we all saw that he's going to get the starting point guard spot and Tyus Jones is gone, I think it might be Jordan time. So in my Roto League, I drafted him in the 5th round. So yeah, Roto.
Okay.
Yeah. I
You're
did
on
it.
him then. Absolutely.
8-cat Roto. So we'll see. And then a couple other Warrior guys. Poole is the next Warrior, but Draymond, I like drafting him every year. I think he just gives you those stats and assists, steals, rebounds. I think his shooting's getting a little bit better since he's doing a little bit less. But you can always count on him for a high number of assists, which are really important and really scarce in that part of the draft. I'm also rooting for Wiggins late round. I'll draft him if he's there. Just take a flyer because I feel like, I think he had a lot of issues happening last year with his dad, and just all the stupid rumors that were going around associated with that. I think the Warriors really support him, and I think he has said that he's found his forever home, and I think I think if he wants to be the second option, I think that's available to him, and so I'm not afraid to take a flyer on him. I like Josh Hart, really good source of rebounds late in the draft. I think he's going to be, knock on wood, he's a fairly durable player. I think he's going to get a lot of minutes, and the Knicks are just not that deep, and so Hart, and then maybe Dyson Daniels, Bogdanovich could go down, as we know, and Dyson, I think, contributes a little across all the categories. So, yeah, those are guys that I like that are favorable in my mind. But again, going into a draft, I'm kind of open to everybody and then just see how it goes with the team build. But I'm generally looking for balance.
Yeah, I love your thoughts, your insights on the balance and the Roto side, because I'm one that doesn't tend to punt as hard as a lot of others, and some go into a draft knowing how they're going to punt. I just can't do that. I love going a balanced approach, and I think it's probably a minority. I think in head-to-head, most people think that you do have to punt, but I've probably had a little bit more success going a little bit more balanced and then being able to really attack the waiver wire with a specific slant towards certain categories depending on your opponent for the week as well. But obviously that depends on how many pickups you have. But I really do like that approach, and thank you for those insights. And that's really good. I like a lot of those. But you didn't actually mention Curry as well. One of your guys, as VP was saying, I think he's going to go ballistic this season.
Oh, I love Steph. Yeah, and I'm if he's sitting there at the end of the first round, I'll totally draft him. I think it's going to be his team. I think, Steph also loves to hoop. And so he is just, he's got, the word joy gets used a lot, but it's totally true. Lifelong Warriors fan, seeing him since his rookie year, going to games, the guy is got infectious basketball energy and joy. And it's fun having him on your team, Although when I first started playing, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. My first draft, I drafted Steph and pretty much all Warriors, like David Lee and everyone else. And those were the ankle years, and so I learned the hard way, like how not to do a draft. But yeah.
You can't draft with your heart. You gotta draft with your mind.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Well, I've got a soft spot for Steph because that was the first championship that I took out. It was the year Steph went ballistic, but Paul George was actually a top 3 MVP candidate at OKC. So, yeah, that was a good year for me. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. Fantastic hot takes. Quickly, I'm going to take you through another segment very, very quickly. ADP battles. What we're going to do here, go around the table. I just want a real quick, brief description as to who you'd pick between the following sets of players. First one, similar ADPs at around 28 teammates now. Paul George, Tyrese Maxey. Starting with you, Matt. Who are you taking?
Oh, I'm going Maxey.
You're going Maxey? Why is that?
I just prefer to go like the younger player. Embiid's injury concern might help him, and Paul George is getting up there. Maybe he misses some time. Maxey's one of my favorite guys to draft. So I had him in a bunch of leagues last year.
Oh, yeah, and he won a lot of championships last season. Pat, who are you taking here?
I might switch to Paul George here. I'm quite the opposite of Matt's youth. I know it bites me sometimes or a lot of times, but what I particularly like about Paul George here is that his stat set is quite similar to KD, to which how I build my teams mostly. So I think I'd roll with Paul George and this one.
I like it. VP, who are you taking?
Well, if this was the Pacers and the OKC Paul George, then I would take that. But ever since he teamed up with Kawhi, this is easy Maxey all the way. Something changed ever since he got to the Clippers. He's just been not the same guy. He doesn't play every single game. I think it's Maxey for sure on this one.
Nice one, VP. And Yuri?
Why not have both? I drafted both in my Roto League.
Wow.
I like Paul George. I mean, I like his steal rate in 3. So, yeah.
Nice one. And Kayla, not to forget about you. I know you've been very quiet, but who are you taking here?
I would have to go Maxey as well, actually. The health concerns are there with Paul George. And Maxey's a lot younger. I think he has great potential. As you guys touched on, Embiid has a lot of injury concerns as well. And I think he's a huge player to step up if Embiid was sidelined.
I like it. All right, next battle. We spoke about J-Dub and Jalen Johnson, particularly VP. Who are you guys taking? Kayla, we'll go with you.
I actually prefer Johnson.
Ooh.
I'm predicting a huge breakout year for Johnson and Williams as well too. But I think with Johnson is going to be to a bigger extent, just because obviously we have the hole with DeJounte Murray now gone. He can be the second option offensively, and I think great things for him this year.
Nice. We're going to reverse. Oh, sorry. I've skipped through. Yuri, give us your take.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I guess I really watch a lot more West games than East games. So I like drafting West players just because I know them more and I just watch more games. So I'm probably going to go Jalen Williams. OKC is a really fun team to watch too. And they're both pretty efficient. So I like that. I think Jalen Williams gives a little bit more just rebounds, a little bit more points. I don't know. So I'd probably go Jalen.
Going J-Dub. VP, I know you were hot on both of these guys, but it seemed like you would slant towards Jalen Williams. Is that correct?
Yeah, Williams. In a dream scenario, I want both of them on all my teams. 3rd round for Jalen Williams and 4th round for Jalen Johnson, if that's possible. But in sharp leagues, both of these guys are going to fly early. They should go off in the 3rd round.
Yeah,
easily. Both.
And that's what I'm seeing. Yeah, very commonly. Usually Jalen Williams first, but Jalen Johnson not far behind. And Pat, finally, who would you take?
I agree with Yuri on this one. And VP. I just prefer Jalen Williams' stat set. I think he's like the Mikal Bridges light before Mikal got traded. So that particular stat set is very good for me. Doesn't hurt you mostly in any category. Fits well as well with my um, kind of balanced type of build strategy. So I really like him there. I mean, Yuri was on point when, I mean, the way I view Jalen Johnson is mostly points and rebounds. So give me Jalen Williams all the time over Jalen.
Yeah, he gives you some assists and steals, which are also really important. Yeah.
And something that VP touched on it with Giddy now gone. Alex Caruso is not going to be taking up the same type of usage. Very different player to Giddy. But something that we haven't really focused on, I think Kayla and I sort of spoke about it earlier on in the season, in the preseason. But Jalen Williams has potential to get a lot more steals. If you look at his deflection rate, and for whatever reason, he was unable to translate a lot of those deflections. I'm pretty sure he's a top 5 type of deflection per game type of guy, but those didn't always translate into steals per game. So if that, and we know that steals is the most variable category in 9-cat, if that takes a bit of an uptick, which I think has that potential, then we could be looking at that top 20 finish that VP was talking about. So yeah, for me, J-Dub. Final one. Now these guys, more so for a category league, and we'll get Matt's take on this, but you're often seeing these guys being taken at 5, 6, and 7 in a specific order. Usually I'm seeing Giannis being taken, but as I've sort of mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I don't like going into a draft knowing that I'm going to have to punt. Now, which way are you going to go? Matt, I'm going to start with you just because of the points league experience. I think it's a no-brainer. It's Giannis first. Is that correct?
Yeah, for points, I'd go Giannis first, definitely, and then probably AD, Halliburton. But in Cat's category, I've got AD as my probably 5th ranked player after those top 4 guys is where I'm going with AD. And then I'd probably go with Giannis after AD in category, then Halliburton. And even though, I'm a huge Bucks fan and I love drafting Giannis, I got to be, that free throws will kill you.
Absolutely. Pat, which way are you going to go there? Assuming it's pick 5 here.
That's a top spot. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't want to go into my draft considering even a small punt. I mean, of course, we will have to deal with that. But I think that gives me AD. I think I'll go AD, Halliburton, and then Giannis for my build for this one. Only because of, again, I attack the free throw percentages. So that's more of a personal stuff. So AD, Halliburton, and then Giannis for me for this ADP battle.
Yep. VP, which way are you going, mate?
I'm not dodging the question, but I would take Tatum over any of these guys in a head-to-head league. But in order, I would go AD. Maybe between Halliburton and Giannis. Giannis's knee really scares me. I mean,
yeah,
I think I'll go AD, Halliburton, and then probably Giannis last. But in a head-to-head league, Giannis has to get the bump because of the punting of the free throws. But Roto, AD is going to be phenomenal, I think.
Absolutely. And Yuri, I can sort of hazard a guess which way you're going to go, but which way are you going to go?
Going for balance and efficiency, and just categories that are hard to get later. I'm going to go Halliburton, and then AD, and then Giannis.
Yep. And Kayla, did we get you?
Yuri, I actually agree with you there. I would go Halliburton first in a cast league because it sets you up really nice for assists. But for the 6th pick, I would probably go Giannis and then AD, just because even though AD was relatively healthy last season, the concerns are still there. But in a points league, I would definitely take Giannis first, and then probably Halliburton and then Davis.
Right. Yeah. What I found when I'm drafting Giannis in a category league is, yes, you're obviously punting free throws straight away, but then you're competing to get your guys who are also aligned with that strategy, but you're competing against other guys that have taken Luka, perhaps. I know Luka's not necessarily a hard punt free throw guy anymore, but you're still competing, trying to get these guys. So it's a lot more difficult to try to build a really nice, well-rounded team with Giannis. I love punt free throws with Luka. I think you set yourself up nicely. But Giannis is just very difficult, in my personal opinion. But there we go. And that's just a graphic to show that it could go any which way. It's pick your poison, really. Now, final thoughts and tips for everyone going into, well, what are we? Less than 3 weeks until the start of the season. Any tips? We'll start with Matt. Do you have any tips for everyone?
Well, a tip that, has kind of worked for me is just like take in as much content as you can get out there. You hear different opinions, you hear who people like or don't like. And then if you're hearing like everybody liking, one guy, there's a good chance, that might be a person you want to look at. So yeah, that's kind of what I do, is just try and get as much content, information as I can,
It's actually amazing how much you take in as well. So yeah,
I try and get as much, but
yeah.
I don't watch them all.
Yuri, any tips for us?
Just do a lot of mock drafts. I think it's really important just to get used to like making picks really quickly, and on the fly, and try and use a draft tracker if you can, just to suss out like how you're doing in terms of, like, for me, it's always trying to achieve balance. And I don't know, during season, I think it's important to just keep tracking like your performance as well as against your other, especially in head-to-head category leagues. Like, try and figure out like what categories you have a really strong foundation in. And then as you get closer to the playoffs, like really hone in on at least 5 of those categories to make sure that you can like win those matchups when you get to the playoffs.
Thanks, Yuri. Pat, any tips for us?
Perhaps the biggest tip and learning that I've gathered recently is to try and really, like you've mentioned earlier, go for some upside picks in the later rounds. I'm usually quite I hate to call it the boring guy. I'm more of the I scoop the TJ McConnells, in the last few rounds rather than going for the Amen Thompsons that DMAC has been preaching. So I definitely wanted to do a lot of improvements. The last picks that VP mentioned, Matt also had the Trace Jackson. So I'm picking it up. It's not my natural style, but I think it's about time that I try that as well. So just to sum it up, take some risks as well. I think that's what I'm trying to say here. And then of course it'll end up in the waiver wire if all else fails. So just go for it.
Exactly. Nice one. Thank you, Pat. And finally, VP.
All right, so let's give out the real flyers now that we're an hour plus into the show, so that we get the diehards getting it. Amin Thompson's got to get snatched up. 9th round, 8th round. I think you got to reach for him. He fills it up. I think he's going to be phenomenal in his second year, and I think that he's going to get minutes. He's going to earn it, and he's that good and that talented. So I want to leave every draft with Amin Thompson. I'm sorry I had to do this an hour into the show. I didn't want to give up all the goods early.
I'm with you. You know how strong I am around Amin Thompson's value for this season.
Brandon Miller, I hate the Hornets organization, but this guy is phenomenal. I think he's going to be taking a leap in his second year. I think Brandon Miller, depending on his ADP, if Bradley Beal or Brandon Miller are available at 62, I'm going Brandon Miller. I'm taking a shot on him. Yeah. Was he available in that league, by the way? Brandon Miller? When did he get snatched up? I am really high on Brandon Miller. I think he's going to be a mini Paul George, I think.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of people were talking about that going into the draft last season. Yeah, that's a big call. I like it. Yeah, it's a good take. Very good take. Thank you, VP.
The Hornets organization really scares me, though. So I would only take them in 1 or 2 leagues just to balance it out. I'm not going to go all in like Jalen Williams and Jalen Johnson in every league.
Yeah, we know we can't really trust the Hornets, and who knows what's happening with Mark Williams as well. What's going to happen there?
Mark Williams would have been a nice bounce back candidate.
He would have been. Well, thank you so much, guys. We're going to wrap this up now. We're just about to hit the hour mark, so a lot of good quality content, but awesome to get your insights. I hope that we can make this a regular occurrence because, as we've seen tonight, your insights have been fantastic. We're not always agreeing, and you don't want that because you want to have some variety as well and different thought processes around how you attack drafts and how you attack the season as a whole. So greatly appreciate your input, and I hope you'd love to come back onto the show at some stage in the future. But thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Yeah, it was
Thank
great.
You so much, guys.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us as well. You'll see all of these guys actually on Twitter. So make sure you do look for them and follow us as well at NBA Fantasy Bible and, of course, Kayla_Fonte. And until next time, thank you again and have a lovely evening or morning. See you guys.